Okay, then let's do it. The Mac Observer's Mac Geek Gab 861 for Monday, the Ides of March 15th, 2021. Greetings, folks, and welcome to the Mac Observer's Mac Geek Gab, the show where you send in all your questions, all your tips, all your cool stuff found. We mix them all together into an agenda. We follow loosely the agenda with the goal being that each of us learns 5, maybe today 6 new things. Sponsors for this episode include Sunbasket at sunbasket.com/MGG with code MGG at checkout, Twobird at twobird.com, TWOBIRD.com, and CandidCO.com/MGG. We'll talk more in depth about each of those shortly here. For now, here in Durham, New Hampshire, I'm Dave Hamilton.
And here in sunny Fairfield, Connecticut, this is John F. Ron.
It is, yeah, it's been sunny. It was warm for me.
Yeah, I've been hitting
and
the
you.
beach, man.
Yeah. Got a little colder today.
Seriously.
Right? Yeah, I believe you.
Yeah, but I think all the snow is gone. And
oh, really? Oh, yeah, not here. There's still snow on the ground here.
Nah, actually, there's a couple of piles here and there that were big piles that are a lot smaller.
Yeah. Cool.
Yeah, I had to charge the AC in the car, man, because it got hot in there.
Really? Wow. All right.
Yeah, well, dark interior, you know.
Yeah.
Gets warm quick.
Sure. Cool. All right. Well, let's do some quick tips, shall we? You want to take us to Matt?
Oh, I will take us to Matt. So Matt says, come on, Evernote. I had a couple of emails selected in Apple Mail and was about to file them when I thought, wait, I need to forward these to my wife. I hit the forward arrow and behold, Mail created a new message with both messages inserted into the one new email. There wasn't a subject on the new message, so I went in and sent it on. Who knew? Maybe everybody but me, but I thought that was pretty cool. I don't know if we ever talked about that, but
yeah.
And I assume he means the forward button and not the forward arrow.
It is the button.
No, it's the forward button.
The forward button with
window.
the arrow, right? Yeah, I think that's right. Yeah. That makes sense. Yeah.
But then what occurred to me is that there's a couple of different things you can do, Dave. So this is just a general kind of OS wide tip.
Yeah.
But if you use the command key, you can do a disjoint selection of items. So say I click on one and then there's 3 items above it.
Sure.
If you hold down command and click on it, it will select that as well. And then shift allows you to select the range. So if you click on one thing,
sure,
hold down shift and then click on one that's up or down, it'll select those. So that's just, and I think those apply in the Finder as well.
Absolutely.
I think they apply in most things.
They're pretty system wide. Yeah. Cool.
All right.
Cool.
That's
Matt.
Quick and easy. And then Gene says, I like to use my iPhone to show photos to friends and have discovered a good way to do that. In iOS Photos, select photos and use the share button to share to a note in AppNotes.app. I can put several photos picked from the photos library into a note. Well, because, notes support pictures now.
Right.
And then hand my iPhone to friends and allows me to pick non-contiguous photos and doesn't expose unwanted photos. It's also easy to do macOS Big Sur. I drag the photos from Photos app into a note in Notes, and then it syncs to the cloud. So you get it so you can do it on either machine. Okay. That's cool.
That's interesting. I mean, you could create an album in Photos.
Quick and easy photo sharing without having to wrestle with photos.
Yeah.
I like it.
You could create an album in Photos to accomplish the same thing.
Uh-oh. I'm not hearing you again.
You're not here. I kind of had a feeling you weren't hearing me, John. So we'll wait for John to sync back up here. So
all right, hold on. I don't hear you.
I know, John. You're going to have to just resync. It's just how it's going to be. He's coming back. It's fine. Yeah, there you go.
Okay,
welcome back, Mr. Braun. We know. We could hear you just fine. So what I was saying was you could create an album in Photos to do exactly the same thing. So I mean, Like, I'm not sure where the notes. I mean, that's the beauty of these quick tips is, it's a different way of doing things. And so there you go. But yeah, cool. Cool. Thanks, Gene. Thanks, Matt. All right. Listener Bob points out that he says, I bought a HomePod mini, which now is the only HomePod you can get. He says, and set it up today in my living room alongside my home theater and 4K Apple TV. I enjoyed listening to the HomePod. It has amazing sound for such a small device. This evening, I turned on my TV to watch a show on Netflix, and instead of the show audio coming out of my receiver and speakers, it came out of the HomePod. Apple TV menu navigation sounds came out of the speakers as usual, but audio of any movie or program I selected came out of the HomePod. I looked at every setting I could find in the Apple TV and HomePod settings in the Home app, but could not change that audio behavior. I even restarted the Apple TV and the HomePod. Bottom line, there is no apparent way to choose between Apple TV audio out via HDMI or via the HomePod. But he solved the problem. It says, I unplugged the HomePod from power and program audio now played through the home theater speakers as desired. And then I thought, he says, if I move the HomePod to a different room, Apple TV won't choose it as its audio output. He says, so I went back to the Home app and the location of the HomePod was changed to the kitchen. Now everything works fine. Even though the HomePod remains in his living room, he just changed the virtual room in the Home app to the kitchen. He says now everything works fine. Apple TV audio out to the receiver and speakers via HDMI. The HomePod still physically located alongside the home theater, only playing what I ask it to. So that's interesting that it tries to outsmart you and plays to the HomePod if it sees it in the same room. I wonder, it feels like there's got to be a way to change that. I don't have a HomePod here. I mean, I've gotten them and tested them and sent them back. But yeah, I don't have one to test with, but that's interesting that it would automatically do that. That feels a little aggressive, if you will. So I don't know. You don't have a HomePod, right, John?
No.
Okay. All right. And then Lucas, my son, who gave us that great quick tip about Star Wars from the command line last week, sends us another quick tip. If you are in Messages on the Mac in Big Sur, you now have the ability to pin chats, just like you do on iOS 14. And of course, those pin chats sync across iCloud for you, so the same ones are in all places. Back to the Mac, if you're in Messages and you want to go quickly to one of your pin chats, Command and the number keys. So Command 1 is the upper left chat. Command 2 is the second one on that row. Command 3 is the third one on that row. 4 is the first one on the left on the second row, and so on and so forth. You can experiment and figure it out. You can have up to 9 pin chats, I believe, and your command keys can get you to those very quickly, which is fantastic. Ever since he texted me about it, I've been using it all the time. I have like 6 pin chats, for the family and some other things. And it's super handy to be able to just right there in the Messages app, jump around with the keyboard. So I like this quick tip. Thanks, kiddo. I call him kiddo. He's taller than me and, I'm an adult now, but some things never change. All right. Let's see. Did you know about that one, John? Oh, man. John seems to be having audio issues today. You back, Mr. Braun?
You keep disappearing. I
Interesting.
can't hear you, so I have to restart the session.
Interesting. That's not so good.
It's happened several times.
And I can see that I am sending you audio consistently. So it definitely is a thing on your end. Huh.
Okay.
Interesting. If it happens again, I would say quit the Mimo Live app on your end and relaunch it just to see if that resets it. And then we'll tell Oliver about it. So there you go. Hey, Xfinity Xfinity Voice, which is the service that you get with your with your cable modem. So essentially the landline service has added the stir shaken robocall prevention protocol. And now if they can verify that someone's number is valid, it adds a V to the caller ID that comes in. So that when someone calls you, you can look, and if the V is after it, it has verified that this passed the stir shaken protocol, and you know that it's not a spoofed name or even spoofed number on the caller ID, which is pretty cool. So hopefully other services will start to do things like that too. I like that. It's pretty good.
Mine puts the word spam ? Before ones that it thinks are suspect.
Okay. And is it using stir shaken to do that, John?
I don't know what algorithm they're using.
Okay. Cool. Yeah, stir shaken is what's supposed to be an industry-wide sort of accepted protocol for identifying valid versus invalid, or verified versus unverified things. So hopefully everybody starts to really, I think there's something where they have to by a certain point in time, right? Or they have to at least divulge whether they are or not. I have a question for everyone. A brief question. So I am in a neighborhood where I can see the Consolidated trucks stringing their fiber, and they say that by May I can move to Consolidated fiber, which I think is fantastic. Because only for one reason, I get faster upstream. I'm right now with Comcast Gigabit. I'm limited to 40 megabit upstream. So fiber, I can go up to a gigabit, and being a podcaster, that's sort of a thing, but really good for all of us because it, fast backups. The thing is, Comcast Xfinity has been rock solid reliability wise for us here for 16 years. And I don't want to give up that reliability. And even their customer service has been fantastic. I really don't experience the things that it's clear some people do that lead them to hate Comcast. It just has not been a thing for me. We've actually really quite liked it. We just want faster upstream speeds, and Comcast doesn't offer those. So I'm curious what you folks, anybody out there that has Consolidated fiber, what the reliability has been like. So I probably will leave both running for several months here when I make the switch, because I can. My Synology router will let me, John, have one as the primary and one as a failover, and it's worth a couple $100 to make sure that I've got reliability for a couple of months. But yeah, I'm just curious. Let us know feedback at macgeekgab.com if you would, please. I would appreciate it.
He said feedback at macgeekgab.com.
I did say feedback at macgeekgab.com, and you can send in your questions and tips and cool stuff found to that too. You can also join the chat room at live.macgeekgab.com, which is where Alex shared the following cool stuff found, which is something called Musi.sh, MUSI.sh. It is the open source Apple Music web app. Now, it's cool. It authenticates using Apple's, built-in authentication, so that they're not like storing your passwords or anything like that. And you log in and you have this beautiful web interface that has all your playlists, and you can play your Apple Music and all of that great stuff. And that's awesome. And from a geeky standpoint, I love it. I'm not sure why it exists, though, because there's also music.apple.com, which is not open source, but turns out, is from Apple and is your official Apple Music web app. So maybe this works in other browsers, but I thought Apple Music's web app worked in a variety of browsers too. But anyway, it's cool. So that's why we share. Thoughts on that, John, before we move on? I think I lost him again. This is not good. This is not good. All right, I'm gonna pause the show here and see what we can find. Mr. Braun. John. Hello. Mr. Braun. Mr. Braun. You still here, Oliver? If you are, it would be nice to have you help troubleshoot. Hey, are you back?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So I'm assuming you've quit and relaunched Mimo Live, yeah?
Mm-hmm.
Interesting. Interesting. Huh. You are capturing from Mimo Live in Audio Hijack to send it to your headphones. Is that correct?
No, just to facilitate a recording.
Okay. But it is capturing Mimo Live in Audio Hijack. Is that right?
Correct.
Okay. Turn off that capture and let's see if that changes your reliability.
All right.
Yeah.
That's off.
Cool. And you can still hear? All good?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Interesting. Strange. And do you, like, if you go to, like, your Mimo call connection, do you get to see incoming and outgoing, like, audio streams? Because I can see what I'm sending to you, and I can see your IP address.
Outgoing. I see outgoing.
But you don't get incoming.
I see the, like, bars bounce around.
Okay.
In the window that has both of us.
Yeah.
When you talk, the bars move.
Okay. And when you stop hearing me, do the bars stop moving?
I will.
Okay.
Pay attention to that next time it happens, which I'm sure it will, but it may not. Actually, one thing that was happening that all of a sudden I'm like, that shouldn't be that. It was running a time machine backup, and I'm like, no. I schedule those for 3 a.m, and it always does them at 3 a.m. So I don't know why it didn't complete the last one.
Right. Well, I mean, 3 a.m. came by surprise today. So,
yeah.
Right. We went from 1:59 to 3. Mm-hmm. I mean, I don't know if that was what it was, but that's interesting that time, because that would make sense because it is all about buffers. Right. And so if those buffers get full. All right, hang on. Let's bring everybody back in. Mm-hmm. All right, John is back. So this has been interesting, and one interesting thing about this issue that's happening to you, John, is you just pointed out that you have you noticed that Time Machine was trying to back up while we were doing the show, despite scheduling it not to, of course. So that could be the cause for this. Is when Time Machine backs up, is it just backing up your internal drive? Is it backing up externals as well?
No, just the internal SSD.
Just the internal SSD. Yeah. Because, I mean, there is, I don't know if computer engineers still use the term interrupts, but that is definitely a thing, or at least that concept still exists in some way. And if the audio buffers needed to get the sound from the app to you get reset, that would don't get full or don't get filled, that can cause what you're hearing, which is, of course, the resulting nothingness. All right, well, let's hope this doesn't continue. Let's hope stopping the Time Machine backup solved the problem. All right, Everett has a cool stuff found from the most recent episode. So hopefully you hear this too, John.
Hello, John and Dave. I just wanted to bring up a program called OBS, the Open Broadcast System. It is a great program for streaming out to any RTMP destination. The reason that I am bringing it to your attention today is because you had a listener request a way to record webinars. One of the lesser known features of OBS, or less mentioned features, as it is a button that is right below the Go Live button or the Start Stream button, you can now record straight to your hard drive in whatever format, bit rate, or resolution you feel comfortable with. You can also set it to record, let's say, the meeting audio on your right track, and then you can set your personal mic to the left track, giving you more flexibility down the road. At my current workplace, we have a dedicated computer that uses the email simply record at insert company domain here. We have it pre-set up for RingCentral, Google Meets, and a couple other software-based meeting platforms. When we want to record a session, we simply send the invitation to recordings@companyname.com. From there, we simply remote desktop into the machine and start the recording when the meeting starts. If you are doing it from your personal machine that you also are in the meeting with, be sure to add your personal microphone to OBS. So that way your audio is recorded along with the audio from Zoom or your platform of choice.
Makes sense.
I think I have taken enough of your time. So have a great day and don't get caught.
That's great.
And thank you for all that you do.
Well, you're welcome. And that's great. Thank you, Everett. That's I like it. This is that's pretty good. Pretty good. To use OBS to grab all that stuff. Because that's I mean, it's built to be efficient to do that for sure. Yeah. Very cool. All right. So the next thing I have on Cool Stuff Found, we are entering a period here, especially in the United States, but probably nationwide or probably worldwide. Sorry. Where the COVID vaccines are about to open, the ability to book COVID vaccine appointments, I should say, is about to open up to a whole lot more people. And if you've been through this or helped someone go through this, you know that the systems that they use kind of remind you, or at least remind me, of using Ticketmaster, but not Ticketmaster as of, 2020 or 2019, which was a fairly well-oiled machine. Much as we like to complain about it, it works way better than it used to, where it would just time out and, you'd have tickets and they would go away. So all of these systems that are used for booking the COVID vaccines are brand new and really haven't been road tested and just got, rolled out because that's how it worked. And they are not as well oiled as a Ticketmaster machine. In fact, I had a thought the other day, like, why didn't they just leverage Ticketmaster to do this? And there's probably plenty of good reasons for that. But, they know how to do these kinds of things. Anyway, those floodgates are about to open for a lot more people. And we're geeks. We like to use technology to help us make sure that we're not missing the opportunity to book our appointments. So there was a great piece in the Wall Street Journal that Joanna Stern did. It's a video where she interviewed a guy who had gone through a bunch of this stuff. And then she also wrote it up as a text version. So I'll put links to both of those in there. And near as I can tell, these are not behind the Wall Street Journal's paywall, which is great. But they mentioned two great tools. There's a bunch of great tips in there, but they mentioned two tools. One is extension for Chrome and therefore also for Microsoft Edge called Page Refresh, which automatically refreshes a page for you in your browser. So you don't have to keep hitting, refresh or, whatever your favorite keystroke of choice is to do that, which can be super handy. And then there's also a service called Visual Ping. It's not free, but it will refresh a page for you. That's actually kind of cool. You have it sort of load the page into its window, and then you draw which section of the page you want it to monitor for changes. And then it will refresh in the background for you. And then it will tell you when, that section of that particular web page has refreshed, and then you can go and do your thing. So there's some great stuff there. It is going to be a frustrating thing because there's going to be a lot of people getting in and doing this. And so using technology to assist us can be a good thing. There's a website or a service, I guess it's a website called TurboVax, which was written by a programmer in New York State to find available appointments in New York State. I guess every state's different, and that's the thing. But I guess there's, hundreds of different websites, some with the state, some with, individual pharmacy locations, not just chains. And so there could be plenty of appointments available. And if you don't, there is no one place to look for them. So this TurboVax thing that he created helps people find available appointments nearby. If you're in New York State, I know there's been desire for him to expand this to other states. I don't know what his plans are, but anyway, I put links to all those things in the show notes for you. So those of you that wish to sign up for a vaccine appointment that are eligible, as we move forward, do it. My own personal advice is when you have the opportunity, sign up. The goal is for everybody to have the option to do it. So if you want it and the opportunity presents itself, sign up and move forward, and don't look back. There you go. So, thoughts on that, John?
So can you choose whether to have the RFID chip embedded in that, or?
I like the one that I get to hear the U2 songs that were on the original iPod or whatever it was that Apple added. Yeah. All right. We talk a lot about speakers and portable headsets, and one of the things that comes up is how can you listen to music or podcast audio or whatever while you're on your bike and still yet hear traffic around you. And JLab came out with the Jbuds Frames. It's $50, and what these do is they clip onto your existing glasses, and they have little speakers. They go on the edge of the frames, right in front of your ear. They have speakers that aim back at your ear, one on either side of your glasses. You just clip these on, and they're Bluetooth and stereo and all of that stuff. They are not private in that if you're walking around, other people near you can hear what's happening there. They are also, used for hands-free calling, so you can use them that way too. They're not heavy. I put them on my sunglasses and they were fine. They have little, if your frames are like super thin, they have these little, I'll call them shims. They probably hate that word, but little things that you can put to thicken up your frame so that you put it on, and it works great. The sound is fully intelligible. The low end is dramatically lacking compared to, like sealed earbuds or something, which absolutely makes sense. You don't want to be like literally rocking your head back and forth just to hear low end. I thought maybe they would do something with bone conduction to get more low end, but they didn't. But it's $50, and I look forward to using them while I'm on my bike. To be able to hear, and you could choose to, only put one on and then listen out of just one ear and all of that. They've got like 100 hours of standby time, and I think it's like 8 or more hours of listening time on each of these. So it's a pretty cool thing, and for $50, pretty good, smart. Any thoughts on that, John?
No, I guess it's. I think that's always a challenge with, especially a very tiny
physics
speaker,
yeah,
is how I mean, you need volume, or you need surface to generate lower tones,
correct,
right?
Yes,
that's why the speaker,
exactly, yeah.
Now, could they do something, or I'm sure some people, I mean, you could do something digitally, right?
Well, I mean, not really. No. Audio is analog, okay, right? I mean, there are things you can do. Like most small speakers can't reproduce a sound below like a middle C on a piano. However, our brains are smart enough to hear the harmonics of the lower frequencies. Every note has harmonics that resonate above it. It's like third, fifth, octave, fifth. There's a whole formula. But our brains. So if you hear a note, if like the an A2 or something is played that a tiny little like 2-inch speaker can't reproduce, the harmonics of that will be reproduced by the speaker, and your brain will backfill and hear that lower note. Now, you won't feel it, obviously. You're not moving air at that frequency, but your brain will fill in those notes, which is fascinating to me, how the mind works in those ways.
Cool.
But, yeah. So, yeah.
Okay. Should teach a class on this.
Maybe we kind of do this show. So I'm already teaching a class this semester at UNH, and it's fun, but it's a lot of work, so I told my class, I said, it's really different. I said, I either speak on my podcast or I go to user groups or conferences or whatever. I said, or, I do, talk to the staff or whatever. I said, it's a very different experience talking to people that are fans or employees of mine versus people who are, on just paying to be there as a college student. I said the level of built-in engagement is lower. So, but we have fun with the class. It's good. We're producing a podcast series, which is going to be a blast. So, yeah. Speaking of earbuds, custom fit earbuds have always been outside of the realm of affordable possibility. Well, for a lot of people, or just realistic expenditure for a lot of people. A company called WAVS Custom at WAVScustom.com has changed that. They have these custom fit earphones all in for the dual driver earphones. I'm looking at their website now. I have their dual drivers. They now have triple driver earphones. So of course, obviously I'm jealous. But let's see, I'm looking at the pricing here just to make sure I get this right. Okay, so the dual drivers are less than $150. The triple drivers are $300, but the dual drivers sound great. That's what I have. So for $144 all in, you get custom fit earphones with two drivers in each ear, and they sound good. Like they really do. The way they do it, John, is arguably even cooler, because instead of having to go to an audiologist to get my ears scanned, molds poured into my ear and all that stuff, I used the Face ID camera on my iPhone to scan my ears. They had this app that you could use, and of course it's doing 3D modeling. That's what it's doing for your Face ID. And, I just kind of held it up to my ears, and then, they had like sent me a way to download the app so that they would get access to my scans, obviously. And then they just made them and sent them to me. It's fascinating. And they, it's pretty cool. They for those of you watching on video, I'll hold it up here. But the ones I got are blue. You can see the outside is all custom fit to my outer ear. And then the part that goes in my ear canal actually uses a seal. I have a comply tip on there, but or what I'll call a universal seal. I have a comply tip on there on this one. And then I've got just a silicone tip on the other one. And that way it's hard to scan your inner ear with your iPhone and do it accurately. And this really gets a good seal. and you can change the tip out to get it right. And I share this advice all the time, and I will share it again because we're talking about it. Your ears are not symmetrical. Most likely, most people's ears are not symmetrical. And that means regardless of brand of headphones, if you are using, tips, different size tips to fit your ear, don't expect both ears to be the same. Your ears will very likely require different size tips to get the same fit. So don't assume that, I got this to work in this ear, I'll just use the same one over there. It's not a bad place to start, but you can have radically different sized ears. Most of us do. I certainly do. So, yeah. So just bear that in mind. All right. Any thoughts on that, Mr. Braun?
No.
Okay. Then we have all sorts of questions and everything. I would love to take you through each of our sponsors for today, if that's okay with you, Mr. Braun.
Please do.
All right. Our first sponsor for today is TwoBird. TwoBird is your consolidated inbox. It brings together notes, your reminders, your calendar, your email, of course, and collaboration. TwoBird is from the makers of Notability, that best-selling note-taking app that we all love. And that's because TwoBird was built with the same philosophy as Notability. Powerful, yet simple. So the idea behind TwoBird is that you get all your tasks in one place, right? TwoBird lets you manage more of your day within your inbox that you already have, because we all use our inbox as a task list. I mean, it's how it works. So let's pull it all there. That's what TwoBird does. And that way it helps reduce distractions from task switching between apps by bringing together all the necessities for productivity, including, like I said, reminders, notes, calendar, all of that stuff into one inbox. Constantly switching from an email to a document or a chat app to a calendar wastes time. We're very big fans here of efficiency and focus and spotlighting, where you can really just focus on one thing, makes a huge difference. This is the philosophy behind Twobird. It's super simple, clean interface for distraction-free work. And what's cool is it's free. You can go download it immediately in the App Store for Mac and iOS, and of course the Google Play Store for Gmail users globally and Microsoft users soon. And you can do it on the web too. It's available everywhere. So go get Twobird. Focus on the content that matters at Twobird, TWOBIRD.com. Next up is Sunbasket. And if you've heard about Sunbasket before, I have some special things to tell you about here. Because here's the deal. Getting dinner on the table quickly does not have to mean sacrificing nutrition and quality. Because with Sunbasket, you can actually have it all every single day. Sunbasket wants you to have your healthiest year yet. And they're making it easier than ever with their fresh and ready meals. They're just $8.99, so they are good for your body and good for your budget. The way these fresh and ready meals work is fantastic. You just literally take them out, heat them up, and eat them. Heat them, eat them. They're fully, freshly prepared and ready to heat up in as little as 6 minutes. Some of the meals this week: spicy southwestern turkey and sweet potato skillet, chicken cacciatore with spaghetti, turkey bolognese with spaghetti, jambalaya with chicken and andouille sausage. I mean, this stuff, chicken tikka masala with basmati rice pilaf. You got to go check this out. And right now, Sunbasket is offering $35 off your order when you go right now to sunbasket.com/MGG and enter promo code MGG at checkout. So that's sunbasket.com/MGG. Enter promo code MGG at checkout for $35 off your order. One more time, sunbasket.com/MGG, promo code MGG. Our thanks to Sunbasket for sponsoring this episode. Are you unhappy with your smile? Well, you don't have to be, thanks to our next sponsor, Candid, at CandidCO.com. Thousands of people have used Candid, the clear, comfortable, removable, and practically invisible aligners to help straighten their teeth. And now they love their smile. They sent us some customer testimonials. Cameron in Nashville says, once I started Candid, my life completely changed. I started going to the gym more. I started eating better. I even have better dental hygiene. My goal for my wedding was perfect teeth, and Candid got me there. Sharon in Pittsburgh says, I wore braces as a teenager. Flash forward 30 years, I had crowding on the bottom and one of my teeth actually stuck out. That's when I made the decision to move forward with Candid, and I finally got my confidence back. You got to go check this out because your treatment is prescribed and closely monitored remotely by a licensed orthodontist who's an expert in tooth movement, and you'll maintain the same orthodontist who created your plan. That person's with you from start to finish, so you never have to wonder how you're doing. The average Candid treatment is just 6 months, but you'll start seeing results way before then, and it costs thousands less than traditional braces. So become your best you. Start straightening your teeth today. Right now, you can save $75 on Candid Starter Kit. You got to go to CandidCO.com/MGG and use code MGG. That's CandidCO.com/MGG. Code MGG. Take advantage of this limited time offer to save $75 on your starter kit. CandidCO.com/MGG. Code MGG. And our thanks to Candid for sponsoring this episode. All right, John. Last episode, we talked about Cliff's issue, trying to figure out what was chewing up his processes, right? Like what was using up all of his resources. He heard that his external drive was grinding along. And so we told him to check with LSOF, and you can listen back to how we did that. And he says, after playing with all of this and taking a look, it appears that almost all of the open files are related to photos. Any ideas on how to curb photos background business? Is it all the indexing and photo recognition? Or do I just not worry about it and buy an external SSD? So, I mean, obviously, if you can afford an external SSD, that is a better option because it's quieter and faster and all of that good stuff. But those can get expensive, especially when they are, being used for the big stuff. In fact, a lot of times we'll use, the SSD for our boot drives and things like that, and then just put the big stuff like photos and music libraries off onto an external rotational because it's less expensive. But all hope is not lost. You can go get AppTamer from St. Clairsoft, the people that make Default Folder, and that can be used to wrangle photos and its indexing processes so that when they are in the background and you are doing things in the foreground, it will not just take up all of your resources. You might still hear the drive going, so I'm not sure. It's really built for the CPU to wrangle it, but AppTamer might be the thing to help you here. And if it's not, maybe it'll help you with something else. We've been fans of AppTamer for a long time here, just to do exactly that, so that like when we're podcasting, we don't have, for example, Time Machine taking over. I'm guessing you're not running AppTamer, John, and that's probably part of what what happened there. So yeah, AppTamer can be great, especially when you're doing things that are limiting your or need to use lots of your resources, and you don't want the background stuff taking over. Seems like sometimes my computer is more busy using itself than I am able to use it. And it's like, can't I be first in line and then you do your stuff in the background? Sometimes yes, sometimes no. Thoughts on that, John, or time for Slough?
Come on, man. This is a 6-core i7 that should be able to handle anything.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, but it's not always just the CPU, right? I mean, there's one bus.
Oh, I know it.
Yeah.
Yeah, it could be. It could be. Yes, you're absolutely correct.
Yeah.
All right. Slough, a little follow up here. So Slough, who, I remember we had a drink with him once.
Yeah.
Remember that?
Right before it. Yeah. When we could see other people or get together with other people is perhaps a better way of saying that. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Anyways, just listening to 860 and heard the remark about Onyx not being accessible for blind users. Slough speaks from a position of authority because he does have a visual thing going on there. So Onyx is and always has been accessible with VoiceOver on the Mac. So maybe that was the nuances that you have to use VoiceOver. I can't vouch for Cocktail as I don't use it, but the folks at Titanium Software have done a great job of making sure Onyx identifies all of its UI elements correctly. Yes, as John said, everything should be accessible, and Onyx by Titanium is absolutely. Cheers.
Yeah, VoiceOver just leverages accessibility, so if it's hinted properly, VoiceOver can do it. So yeah, hopefully that helps out listener Sean from last week's episode. Sean, hopefully you maybe try downloading a new build of Onyx, and perhaps that will get you through it. If not, maybe Slough will offer to get in touch. We often put Mac Geek Gab listeners together, but never without your mutual permission, obviously. Mm-hmm. So yeah, but you can always ask in the forums at macgeekgab.com/forums, and that's where everybody can kind of share in the knowledge there. So feel free, please, in fact, do that. We would love to see you helping each other there. It's awesome. All right. Let's see. Let's go to Christopher on the subject of using up our computers and things happening. Christopher has a question. He says, my new setup is a new M1 MacBook Pro with 8 gigs of RAM and a 256 gig SSD connected to a 43-inch monitor. And he says, he sent us several screenshots of notifications that he's receiving from Clean My Mac, telling him that he has heavy memory usage. And looking at iStat menus, it shows that his free memory is down, below in the hundreds of megabytes range. And then he uses iStat he uses Clean My Mac to free up RAM, and then he'll have, gigabytes available. He says, so my question is, should I return this and opt for the 16 gig or stay with the 8 gig and stop worrying about it? Well, so regarding RAM, I am beginning to think that this is a Big Sur thing and that there's not any specific problem with the M1 with regards to RAM. My 32 gig Intel iMac down in the office is now, and this is new, is now routinely running at less than 100 megabytes free. And I can feel it. I know when it gets there, things get a little bit jumpy, moving from window to window. And then I look at iStat and it's like, oh yeah, you got 60 megabytes free of RAM. And a lot of it is in the, what do they call it? The inactive scenario, right? Where it's like caching things essentially. But there's something about Big Sur that has changed this, because I never had this experience, at least not routine. I would have it, but it wasn't a regular thing. Now I know 11.2.3 fixed or reports to have fixed a WebKit related memory leak. And I did install 11.2.3 on Friday morning, and it was, it's hard to say. I've used it for half a day. So to say whether it's better or not is, I can't yet, but, certainly do that, update to 11.2.3, see if things get better. But there's something going on with Big Sur. Have you noticed this, John, at all?
No, but then again, I have 16 gigs. So in both my machines.
Sure. Well, I mean, that machine down in the office has 32. So it's certainly not starved for RAM, but it is routinely at less than, 100 megs of free space. So yeah. Yeah, there's something about Big Sur, I think. So we shall see. And then to answer your question, Christopher, should you get 16? So you're getting an answer from someone who bought the 16 gig M1 Air, right? But on that machine, I have yet to experience these RAM issues. However, it is not my daily driver. I wind up using it every day. It really has become, part of my life in that way. But it's not the thing that I'm using for hours and hours on end, at my desk. And so I don't see these issues, but I also don't think I would see them if I just had 8 gigs of RAM. I think you're okay with 8. But again, that's coming from a guy who hedged his bets and bought 16. And John just said he did the same thing, right? So it's hard to say. So I don't know. I don't know how, I know that doesn't answer your question, but that's the answer that I have. So there you go. Yeah.
One way the OS can try to tell you that it's struggling is that pressure setting.
Yep.
If that's too high, then that means it's having problems dealing with whatever you're trying to make it do.
Yeah.
But I've never seen that bar be any color other than the first color,
the green or whatever it is. And you're talking about inactivity monitor, right? Or also, yes. I guess iStat menus also will report memory pressure.
I'm looking at the screenshot he sent us with memory pressure, and his is at 24%, which sounds just fine to me.
Sure. Yeah.
And I'm looking over my Big Sur machine. So it normally is using about 10 gigs of RAM.
Okay.
With all the programs that I'm running, and that is usually a constant. At first I was like, wow, it's using 10 gigs. That's a lot.
Yeah, right.
I mean, I'm running Safari and Mail and, nothing that's a big of a deal, but apparently.
And that's what I'm saying is like, it just feels like a baseline system running Big Sur that's been up for a day or two has, is using more RAM, a lot more RAM than prior. In the chat room at live.macgeekgab.com, Kiwi Graham says, I'd be more interested in how much swap is allocated. Inactive used memory is okay. And I agree with that to a degree. It is certainly, swap is a good indication that the system has decided it needs to start using disk space to do things. And on mine, I'm seeing, somewhere between 1 and 2 gigs of swap used downstairs, which isn't out of the ordinary. It rarely does it jump up to like 6 gigs of swap used, but it is, at this free level of like 50 megs, which is just super low for me. Like this machine here in the studio right now also has 32 gigs. Maybe it has 40 gigs actually. But anyway, I've got 12 gigs of free memory right now. So like that feels like a good thing. And I'm running obviously lots of things. I'm recording a podcast. I'm streaming this. We're doing the video. I have Logic running as my mixer. Like there's a lot going on and I've got 12 gigs of memory. Now, of course, I reboot every week before we do the show. so that I have free RAM. I'm curious, how much free RAM do you have right now, John?
Let's see. On both machines, about 5 gigs.
Okay.
10 used, 5 or 10 used and 5 free.
Okay. There you go. And is that free counting inactive in the free? I know iStat menus by default counts inactive RAM as free RAM, and I turn that off. I count free RAM as free RAM and inactive as inactive. So I'm just curious if you're, are we comparing apples to apples, so to speak?
Yeah, it's reporting free.
Okay. Okay. Cool. All right. Well, there we go. Listener David has a question. He says, I used to have just a 2012 MacBook Air with 4 users, mom, dad, daughter 1, and daughter 2. In 2017, dad purchases a MacBook Pro and uses Migration Assistant to set his MacBook Pro, still with mom and daughter's accounts. Okay, great. Then daughters 1 and daughters 1 and 2 get MacBook Pros for college. Mom continues to use the 2012 Air that is now showing its age. Last Friday, dad purchases an M1 MacBook Air. Nice guy dad is giving mom his 2017 MacBook Pro. Great. Here's what we want to do. Number 1, we want to clean up that MacBook Pro, dropping both daughters' accounts and migrate mom's information from the old Air to the MacBook Pro. Number 2, we want to migrate dad's accounts from the MacBook Pro to the M1 Air. And number 3, both current laptops back up via Time Machine to a Synology. Okay, great. Sounds good. What's the best path forward with the MacBooks, and what should we do with the Synology? So this sounds like a fun little project. My thoughts are pretty straightforward with this. I would take the MacBook Pro because that's the one. Well, the first thing I would do is reformat the Air if it has anything on it, but it probably came formatted fresh from the factory, so you're probably good there. And then slurp in your data first from the MacBook Pro to the MacBook Air with Migration Assistant, and do that. And then reformat the MacBook Pro and use Migration Assistant on it to slurp in mom's data from the old Air. And I really think that that's going to be your easiest path. How would I use the Synology in this scenario? Well, I would probably use Carbon Copy Cloner to make a one-time clone to a disk image on the Synology of each, the MacBook Air, the old Air that you're going to do away with, and the Pro before you reformat it, just in case there's something one of your daughters needs or something that your wife needs that doesn't get migrated over. But so I would do that first, obviously, because can't do it after you reformat. Well, you could, but it wouldn't be as valuable. And so I would migrate those over. I'd rely on Migration Assistant for this. I mean, you could do it manually, but I think you're going to be okay with Migration Assistant on this one. I don't know. What do you think, John?
That's what worked for the last Mac that I set up.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
And the Air, you may be able to get a few bucks from Apple. I was surprised that they actually gave me some money for my MacBook Pro 2012.
Right. Yeah,
but they did. I forget what I got. I mean, it was nowhere near what I paid for it.
Well, yeah, of course. Cool. All right. Well, I hate to jinx us, John, but I'll knock on some wood first. But it seems like you, after disabling Time Machine, your system has been happy with receiving and playing audio for you from me. So that's
good.
I
had to do a reset once, but
interesting.
I usually do at some point.
Okay, interesting. Yeah. All right. So it's a resources thing. That's interesting. We'll have to report that to Oliver and the folks at Boinks to see if they can help you troubleshoot that. All right. You want to take us to Rick?
Rick's got a quick one here. Nice tip in 854 regarding IoT devices not connecting to 5 gigahertz networks. I had this problem with a Shark robot vacuum. Turned off the 5 gigahertz radio, and then it worked. Turned 5 gigahertz on after setup, and that works again too. So So he just wants to thank us for pointing it out because it shouldn't be that way, but it is.
Yeah. So just a quick recap on that is some devices, the setup process, so the software that's on your phone to set them up, try to connect them to the exact same radio that your phone is connected to. And if the IoT device, in his case, a Shark robot vacuum, only supports 2.4 gigahertz, but your phone is connected to 5, then that setup will fail for obvious reasons. And the trick is to turn off the 5 gigahertz radios in your router temporarily or in your mesh temporarily so that your phone's on 2.4, then it can share that data with the robot vacuum. Everything's fine. And then your phone can go back to 5 because it's already shared the data with the vacuum and everything's good. So that's the trick there. So I'm glad that worked, Rick. Thanks for sharing that. All right. Everett has a Bluetooth issue to share. So another audio comment from Everett.
Hello, John and Dave.
Hello
I just
again.
wanted to share my experience so far with Bluetooth 5 in my Mac Mini. Currently, I have the THX Panda headphones. Lovely pair of wireless headphones if you haven't checked them out already. But I have been having this issue when using the headphones and AirPods, either one interchangeably, and my Bluetooth trackpad and my Bluetooth keyboard, both Apple. The Bluetooth module will randomly crash and freeze, in the point that I have to go up to that Bluetooth menu and reset it, or wait 2 minutes and then turn off and on each Bluetooth device to get it to reconnect. As you can probably imagine, this is very annoying. But the source of the issue seems to be any USB hub that is USB 3 capable. Whenever I use a USB 3 hub specifically, it makes my Bluetooth devices act funky. Or if I have my trackpad unplugged from the wired connection, it will make my Bluetooth devices act flaky as well. So currently, my fix for Bluetooth flakiness on the Mac Mini is a USB 2.0 hub to run anything that isn't USB 3 necessary, like my UPS, my Stream Decks to make my calls a little more enjoyable with some sound effects, and
Thanks for
any
that.
other non-speed necessary devices. The other thing that seems to be working just fine is a USB-C to USB-A adapter. It must be 1-to-1. If it's a USB-C to USB Mini, it acts flaky again. Just thought I would share my experience and wonder if you had any input about the flaky devices. Until next time.
Goodbye.
Having fun with the Stream Deck. That's great, Everett. So the USB 3, as we mentioned recently, but also for many years, USB 3 will interfere with 2.4 gigahertz connections. And that often means Wi-Fi, but Bluetooth also runs at 2.4 gigahertz. And so it doesn't surprise me that you're having this issue. As far as solving it, you've mitigated it very well by using a Bluetooth or a USB 2 hub for the things that don't matter, right? That would be USB 2 anyway. Proximity is certainly related to this. The further away you can get those USB 3 devices from the Bluetooth antennas on your Mac, the better. So try moving it from one side of your Mac to the other, depending on which kind of Mac you have. Sometimes it's got antennas on both sides. Sometimes it's one side. Sometimes it's the bottom. Sometimes it's the top. It really depends. So, moving things around and shielding can also solve this problem, right? I mean, proximity creates distance. Shielding creates distance without actually creating space. So think about, okay, is there some sort of metal thing that you could put around or between your computer and the Bluetooth hub or the USB hub, sorry, so that the interference from it isn't, constantly getting in the way. And so it's going to take some experimenting, which you've already been doing, which is great, obviously. So that would be my advice on this, John. I don't know. What do you think, man? Oh, I think we lost John again. I shouldn't have knocked on wood. I shouldn't have said anything. Thoughts on this, Mr. Braun?
There's a nice article that mentions many things that you did.
Okay.
Resolve Wi-Fi and Bluetooth issues caused by wireless interference. It's from our friends at Apple. And so some of the things that he had already done, they suggest in here, like get as many things as possible off of 2.4, which it sounds like he did in a sense, and that he segmented certain devices or
right.
And they mention other things, bring things closer to, and they even go through interference sources or how different materials, which ones are more likely to cause you grief.
Right.
Like, for example, the top is metal because antennas are made out of metal and RF goes to antennas. So,
right. No, so it's interesting. Apple's list is sort of backwards from what we would recommend in Ev's scenario, because you want to create interference between your USB 3 devices and your Bluetooth devices. So using metal there is a good thing because it's going to create that interference, whereas wood, glass, and, like a lot of plastics, not so much. So, yeah. But you could build a Faraday cage around your USB hub. That'd be fun. I don't know. Why not? Yeah. So
put it next to your Van de Graaff generator, right?
That's right. Yes. Yes. If you put a Van de Graaff generator inside the Faraday cage with the USB hub, did we break through the space-time continuum? I'm not sure. It'd be fun anyway. All right. Let's see. You want to take us? We've had some geek challenges come in, John. You want to take us to Scott, my friend?
Oh, all right.
Right? Why not? Let's see what happens here. Let's see what we get.
Let's see what we get. Oh, yeah. This is a toughie. All right. Having issues with my external storage connected to my M1 Mac Mini. I upgraded from a 2018 Mac Mini running Catalina, which is what I have, by the way. And the issue never happened with my 2018 Mac Mini, only when I upgraded. I'm not sure if it's a Mac Mini M1 issue or a Big Sur issue. Yes. To continue, the problem is with my external USB-C hard drive array. It's a Western Digital 2-bay MyBook Duo USB-C mirrored as RAID 1 with 2 8-terabyte drives. Okay, yeah, and I looked at it. Seems like a decent little unit if all you want to do is store your data.
Yeah.
Yeah, it may do some other stuff too. The drive works great, but now I get random errors like it randomly ejecting and or the drive not being available. Eject MyBook Duo before disconnecting or turning it off. Oh, yes. That. If you keep getting that message, well, I'll continue. Okay. But that's a sign of something wrong with a certain part of the system. All right. I see messages like this multiple times a day. At least once a day, the drive will show in the Finder, but not be accessible. When I try to mount it in the Finder, it has an issue. Force ejecting and replugging the USB cable resets it and it mounts and works fine. The interesting thing is that the array has 2 USB-A ports on the back of it, and I plug in a 1 terabyte SSD into that port, and I never have the same issue with that drive, only the Western Digital.
Okay.
Looking at the variables, Dave, this may be going out on a limb here, but I wonder if it's struggling with either the M1 or Big Sur doesn't like the way that RAID looks, and it's kind of wrestling with it. I don't know if you want to re-RAID. the system. I mean, I was trying to think of the other things. I mean, it could be a power supply going to that thing. So that thing has an external wall board. It could be the power supply in the WD is just starting to fail. You mentioned, I think, I mean, it could be a failing power supply.
Yeah.
I mean, I think he said, he checked the cable. Yeah, he changed the cable. I mean, that was the other thing is, well, it's your USB-C cable. It still could be. I don't know if you unintentionally replaced a cable that worked with one that. I mean, I think. No, that shouldn't be a problem. No, I was thinking it would be the amount of power that is being carried through the USB-C thing, but it's not charging. It's just sending data. So no, I doubt that's it.
Right. Yeah. It's not power delivery or anything like that. Yep. Yeah.
Now, he said he uninstalled the WD Utilities software and reinstalled, but yeah, he didn't say that he rebuilt the array. So
those reading the WD website about the what's this called? The MyBook Duo. It is, as they say, RAID 0 ready out of the box. And then you can use their utility to reconfigure it for RAID 0, RAID 1, or just break it into two drives that are exposed to the system, essentially, JBOD style. And then you do whatever you want with your Mac, which I suppose you could then use like soft RAID or macOS's built-in rating for that. And that would be interesting. So, and he says he's got it. Which way does he have it? Is he RAID? Which RAID?
I think he said that he did RAID 1. So that's
okay. Okay. But that's going to be inside. If he did it using their utility, that's going to be hardware RAID 1. Right. So it's reporting to the Mac that it is one volume. Right. And the Mac doesn't know that there's this RAID on the other side of it. Similar to like a Drobo or something. Right. It's like, here's a volume. You don't you worry your pretty little head about what happens inside the box here. Right. So that's kind of how this is here. So it's not macOS that cares about this RAID. The only way macOS would see the RAID is if macOS created it and after he put it into like independent drives as JBOD or whatever, which he could do. That would be another way to do this. But I would lean more toward power supply like you on this. I think that's probably what's going on. But Geek Challenge. If anybody's seen this and actually knows or has solved it, let us know. Feedback at macgeekgab.com. We'd love to hear from you. You touched on this, and so I'm going to circle back to a question that we had skipped earlier, which was about that whole disk not ejected properly error. Sandra had written in and said, I have a problem that I'm trying to solve. Every day I get to my computer and there are 3 external disks, Superman, Time Machine, Robin, all saying, eject this properly before disconnecting or turning it off. And she's got, in her scenario, John, she's got things. One of the drives is a Drobo, and then the other one is a Western Digital drive. And I think one is another, I'm not sure what the brand is. A couple of them are plugged directly into her Mac, and a couple of them are plugged into a USB hub. And so I've seen this before. What would your thoughts on this be, John? You said you had some thoughts to share, so that's kind of why I brought this, just resurfaced this one. When you see that error,
bad cable.
Yeah.
I mean, it's saying this thing that I just saw went away and you didn't tell me to put it away. So I'm going to yell at you is what's happening.
That's right. Yeah. You're right. Bad cable. I mean, if I guess the thing to start with is assuming that this is a hardware issue and not some weird software issue, which I suppose it could be, but in my experience, very unlikely. The thing to remember is that USB is one bus, or at least things connected. Usually, there might be multiple buses in the Mac, but any given USB bus sort of shares its problems amongst other devices. And what that means is if one device on a USB bus is having trouble or misbehaving in some way, it can negatively impact the other devices on that bus. It is all shared bandwidth. So seeing this makes me think, okay, maybe there is a malfunctioning device on the bus. And what I would do, and it's in this scenario, especially the one that Sandra described, where it's happening every day, like waking from sleep for her, it seems. The problem is, testing is tedious and slow, but, before you put it to sleep one night, eject everything except one of the drives, right? Take the hub, like get rid of as much as you can on the USB bus so that you can isolate these things and then start adding things back in. So add in, if it doesn't fail one night, add in another drive. If it fails with two drives connected, take off the first one, see if it fails again with that one and see if you can isolate down where it is. It could be your USB hub is the problem, right? I've seen those go bad for sure and cause weird issues like this. And the fact that it's happening to all three of your drives doesn't necessarily mean that the problem is with all three of your drives. I think that's the important takeaway here. You just need to start doing some isolation testing and as we like to say, right, honor the troubleshooting process, as tedious as that might be. But change one thing, test, change another thing, test, and hopefully you'll figure out, right? Hopefully figure out which device it is. So,
yeah, or to speed things up, just change everything, and that may fix the problem.
That's great. That's super helpful.
No, no, but I'll give you something super helpful. So if you want to see the lay of the USB device tree, which may be helpful because you're right in that there are multiple USB buses, is what I'm trying to say here. And so it could be that just one of the buses is weirding out, or the chip is bad, or something like that. So all three of your devices could be on the same bus. But where do you go to see that? So you go to System Information, Hardware, USB, and it will show you all of your USB buses. I see a 3.0 one, and I got some 3.1 ones, and even a T2 bus. Interesting.
Right.
So that's where you see how your devices are grouped, and that could help your analysis.
Yeah, that's a great idea. That'll at least give you a place to start that's not just a blank slate, right? You can use that to educate and guide your troubleshooting decisions. So yeah, cool. All right, John, we got time for one more. Take us to Wayne and his Geek Challenge. If you would, please.
Yes.
Cool.
Wayne, evidently stuff has been going into the Apple Health app for many years. Most of it isn't terribly interesting to anybody. How can I generate a subset to send to the doctor? If I export everything, I end up with a zip file of about 100 megabytes.
Yeah.
Let's see. How can I pare this down to something that might be useful? I mean, the only thing I can think of, Dave, is that there's something called Health Data Importer. So if you go into the health section, I forget exactly where, but yes, you can export that data, and it exports it into a zip file, which I think you can then load into a spreadsheet, and you can see all the raw data. The thing is, it's only really set up in a format where you can import it back into health again. Right. But I'm thinking this Health Data Importer, I haven't used it. Maybe I should try it. Because I do have health data, not a lot, but some. And I even looked at it, and it had blood work results and stuff like that. So yeah, so it puts all that data in there.
Yeah.
But maybe this program can selectively import some of that data, which you can then re-export it. I don't know.
Yeah. Yeah.
Or ask the developer. Maybe he could add a feature for you. I'm sure because this isn't the first time we've had somebody requesting the ability to fiddle with the health data. I mean, you could also, learn a programming language and then, parse it, write a parser.
So I'm reading, John, the answer might be there. Yeah. So the people that make Health Data Importer, say that they also make a tool called Health XML Splitter. And Health XML Splitter is, and I'm reading here, is a tool that will split large health exports generated by Health app into smaller individual chunks. Breaking it up can be difficult. With this app, all you need to do is drag and drop your export.zip or export.html, and the app will take care of the rest. Now, I don't know if it's splitting it in just a logic, what the logic is behind splitting it. If it's just chunks of different sizes, but the data isn't compartmentalized, then that might not be helpful. But if the data is somehow compartmentalized, or maybe reach out to the folks at Lionheart Software who clearly are interested in providing the tools that we would need for stuff like this, and tell them what you're looking for, they might just have a solution or create one for you. So, yeah, pretty good. I like this. I like it. Yeah. I don't know. All right, cool. Right. I said that was all we had time for, and it turns out that is true. So we will find the band enjoying the sunlight. There they are. We've been playing that same song for decades, John.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I just started thinking, should I? Maybe we need to throw a database at this problem, because that's always one of the first things you do when you have a problem.
Right.
With data. So you get a database.
Yeah,
because you got to fiddle with the data.
Because then you don't have to fiddle.
So you could learn SQL or something. Also, I think there's a SQL database in macOS, right?
I wouldn't use it. I would use MySQL far more. If you're going to learn have a skill. Yeah, have a marketable skill.
Yeah, back in the day, we used MySQL on a Windows machine.
Yeah. But you're right. Yeah, slurping this into a database. You could slurp it into a FileMaker database too. I don't see any reason why you couldn't do that. That would, FileMaker, XML imports into FileMaker are cake. So that, honestly, that's where I would start with this. Because then, you've got, then you can do all kinds of things with it. And FileMaker makes it super, you don't need to learn a database language. So that's where I'd go with it. I know I'm kind of crazy about FileMaker, but there's a reason, and it's things like this. So, yeah. In fact, someone might have already built a FileMaker database to slurp in and manage your health data, and you could adapt that for your own, desires.
Yeah. Yeah. Right? Find a FileMaker user group, and maybe you can.
Yeah. It really is straightforward. Like, if you're someone who would consider heading down the path of learning MySQL to pull this in, FileMaker will be so much easier than that. You won't have any trouble with it. And if you're someone who is not interested in learning MySQL, FileMaker's also is going to be easy for you. So I think that's right. I like that idea, John. Yeah, database. Cool. All right. Well, thanks for listening, folks. Thanks for sending in all your questions. Thanks for thanks to CacheFly. They're the ones that provide all the bandwidth to get the show from us to you. And, it's been a little while since we talked about it, but I want to remind you that CacheFly has your back too, not just ours. So they're the CDN that we use, but they also have that new web optimization thing where all of your content can be optimized before it's delivered to visitors without requiring any development from you. So you think FileMaker was an easy solution in the last question? This is even easier. They've got all the APIs you need to solve all your content distribution problems. They've got application load balancing, and because you're a Mac Geek Gab listener, they've got something for you, because CacheFly is going to provide a free optimization consultation just for being a Mac Geek Gab listener. So you can know exactly where your site stands with the Lighthouse score report and how their web optimization solution at CacheFly can add 60 points to your score. So go to mac.cachefly.com for that. So there you go. Yeah. Thanks to all of our premium contributors. We will thank you by name next week for sure. But if you want to learn more about that, go to macgeekgab.com/premium or just simply macgeekgab.com. It's right there on the front page. Where do we want them to find us, John?
Did we mention feedback at macgeekgab.com? Oh, yeah.
I think we mentioned it's feedback at macgeekgab.com several times, but it never hurts.
Yeah.
We said we were going to go for 6 things today, not just 5. So I think that means we can talk about feedback at macgeekgab.com more than the prescribed 3. So I think so.
Right.
I think it's good. Sweet. All right. Well, thanks for hanging out with us, folks. Thanks for listening. Thanks for everything. And we will we'll see you next week. Make sure to check out our sponsors too. You know, we had sunbasket.com/MGG, candidco.com/MGG, Twobird.com. One inbox for all your tasks. It's actually pretty cool what they built there. All right. Yeah. Tell your favorite friend about the show. John, what else should they tell their favorite friend?
Don't get caught.
Made up.